dear students, welcome back to the class. So today I am going to discuss about the topic recommended dietary allowance or RDA, which you have all these days heard about the requirement of a particular nutrient, right? They are use the term requirement. So what does it mean? See, the requirement of a particular nutrient is defined as it is the minimum amount of the nutrient that need to be consumed. It is the minimum amount of a particular nutrient to be consumed for what? It serves two different purposes. One is to prevent the symptoms of deficiency. So there should not be any deficiency, and also it has to maintain the satisfactory level of nutrient in the body. This is what is referred to as the nutrient requirement. Let me repeat. The requirement of a particular nutrient is the minimum amount of nutrient that need to be consumed by a person in order to prevent the symptoms of any deficiency and also to maintain a satisfactory level of that particular nutrient in the body. See, for example, in case of infants and children, the requirement is for it is to maintain the satisfactory rate of growth and development, because in children and infant the growth will be rapid, so requirement of nutrient is fixed according to which has to match with that growth and development, okay, which has to maintain a satisfactory rate of growth and development. Similarly, for an adult, the nutrient requirement is the amount that will maintain the body weight as well as it prevents the depletion of any nutrient from the body, or if there is a depletion, what will happen? That may lead to deficiency, right? Then, and also there are some physiological conditions like pregnancy and lactation, where adult women may need an additional nutrient requirement in order to meet the demand for the growth of the fetus as well as their nutrient needs, right? So the demand for the fetal growth along with their own nutrient needs has to be managed here. So these are all referred to as a nutrient requirement, which is the minimum amount that need to be consumed. Okay, now let us have a look at the recommended dietary allowances for Indian population. See, for Indian population, the dietary standards have been computed by ICMR, that is Indian Council of Medical Research, where these recommendations given by ICMR have been published in Nutrient Requirements and Recommended Dietary Allowances for Indians, that was in 2010, and these recommendations are constantly revised whenever a new data is available, and the last recommendation was revised in 2010. So almost all these RDA, whenever I say, I use the term ICMR 2010. Now let us see how this requirement or RDA is calculated. See, all the factors that affects the RDA for all the nutrients estimates are arrived at by determining the average. So how do they take this average? So there is a calculation for that, where taking the mean requirement of the nutrient and adding it to the twice the standard deviation of the mean will give the requirement. See, so requirement is equal to the mean of the requirement of nutrients and 2 times the standard deviation of that mean. That will give the correct requirement, and this value will meet almost 97.5% of the population. See, whatever that is being calculated, it meets the demand of around 98% of the population, and this is composed of individuals with a satisfactory normal distribution of the requirement. Okay, requirement, what we say, recommended dietary allowance, it depends on so many factors. So the RDA of an individual depends on many factors, like so you know, it is age, then sex, whether it is male or female, then physical work again, some work are sedentary, then some are moderate, which requires moderate amount of energy, and some of them are hard or heavy work. Then also the physiological status like pregnancy and lactation. So all these factors or the conditions are applied whenever we are calculating the RDA of an individual. So let us look at the age group, what is considered for calculating this requirement at the RDA. So when you say infants, it is still 1 year or 12 months, but it starts from 0 to 3 months is one group. Then from 3 to 6 months, the requirement will vary. Then from 6 to 9 months, there is a different requirement. Then from 9 to 12 months, there is a different requirement. Then above 1 year, it is the requirement of children, and 1 to 3 years is one group, 4 to 6 years is another group, and 7 to 9 years is made another group. So here the requirement of all the nutrients keeps on varying with the growth. And adolescence from 10 to 12 years, again there is a difference in the sex, male and female is taken. For male the requirement will be different from the females. So 13 to 15 years, then 16 to 18 years. So this is how it is divided in different age group, and the requirement also varies. And when it comes to the adults, the RDA for Indian nationals, ICMR defined a well-nourished Indian adults. There must be some standard that has to be taken, right, for fixing a requirement. So here, ICMR has defined a well-nourished Indian adults who had satisfactory growth during childhood. So that has been divided as a reference man and a reference woman. So they have given a clear definition of reference man and reference women. Let us see that now. We start with ICMR's definition of a reference women. So here a reference women, when we say, so these are all the criteria that has to be fulfilled. The age group is between 20 to 39 years of age, then must be healthy and weigh around 50 kg weight, then may be engaged in 8 hours in general household work or a light industry for working women, a light industry, or in any other moderately active work. This is one condition. Then 8 hours in bed, that a proper rest has to be taken. Then spends 4 to 6 hours sitting or moving around in light activity. Then 2 hours of walking or active recreation or a household work. So these are all the conditions for an ICMR's reference women. So this is the standard that is being taken for assessing a requirement of a nutrient. Now coming to the reference men, ICMR's definition of a reference men is the age group between 20 to 39 years who weighs 60 kg, free from any disease. So remember, here we are talking about only the healthy people. So free from any disease and physically fit for any active work, employed for 8 hours, then 4 to 6 hours sitting and moving about, then 2 hours in walking or active recreation or household duties, then 8 hours in bed. So these are the conditions for a ICMR's definition for a reference man taken for giving a nutritional requirement for our RDA. So now you know about the different age groups, then different sex, that is male and female. So what is a reference man and what is a reference women? And here for a reference men, ICMR scientists have prescribed RDA for the adults depending on the level of activity of an individual. That is depending on the physical activity. Here there are different categories and accordingly the RDA is fixed. See, there is sedentary workers. So sedentary workers is defined as those who sit and do work using brain and hands. So not much of the physical activity. So that is why it is grouped as sedentary workers. Say for example, teachers, then office clerks, then typists and officers who doesn't do much of the physical activity for the entire day, right? So that is sedentary workers. Then moderate workers are who work vigorously for few hours using many parts of the body like hand, feet and muscles. And here the examples given for them are postman, then Mali, maid servant, housewife, doing all the household work. So this is grouped under moderate workers. And heavy workers are defined as those who use different parts of the body but several hours, like rickshaw pullers, coolie, then workers in the mine, then sports persons and masons, etc. So all these are grouped as heavy workers. So depending on the physical activity, RDA differs. So moving further, let me also explain you what is a balanced diet. So a balanced diet is one which provides all the nutrients in required amounts and in proper proportions. Then how to achieve this balanced diet for an individual? So it can be easily achieved through a blend of all the four basic food groups like carbohydrates, proteins, lipids or fats, vitamins and minerals, right? And this quantity of food needed to meet the nutrient requirement, now you know that it vary with the age, then gender, the physiological status and also with the physical activity of an individual, and accordingly the RDA varies. And also, when we say balanced diet, it should provide around 50 to 60% of the total calories from carbohydrates, preferably from a complex carbohydrates, then about 10 to 15% from proteins, and 20 to 30% from the fat. And also it should provide other non-nutrient like dietary fiber, antioxidants and phytochemicals. So these are all the non-nutrients but are very essential for the proper functioning of the body. Then also the antioxidants like vitamin C, E, then beta carotene, riboflavin and selenium. They protect the body from free radical damage. And whereas the phytochemicals like polyphenols, flavonoids, and they afford protection against the oxidant damage. So all these are required and they all constitute a balanced diet. And this balanced diet and the requirement of all these, whether it is a calories with this carbohydrate, proteins or the fat, or with our micronutrients like vitamins or minerals, they all vary from person to person depending on the age group, then the sex, the physiological conditions and also with the physical activity as defined by the ICMR.